mean, we don't have, do we still want to actually do does anyone want to do live Python coding still, or do we just want to do a normal thing tonight? Since we have basically the same people that we always have.
Yeah, I think like everyone's here.
Let's just do some Python.
We have Alex. Alex can.
Oh, okay.
We'll do some live coding. I want to do make uppercase because it's fun. So let's do make uppercase because it's just a nice straightforward solution. So let me run through. I'll screen share and we'll talk about this. Screen share, screen one. Let me know if everyone can see that.
Yep.
All right, good. All right, so the make uppercase function. How do we do make uppercase? Well, the algorithm is pretty straightforward, right? We're getting a string passed into our function, and in Python, you just have your string coming in, right? And your string is an array of characters, right? So this can be some arbitrary string. Let's say we have hello. E-L-L-O. And now, what's the algorithm that we want to apply for this to make it all uppercase? Well, obviously, since we have a collection of characters here, we're going to need to make each individual character uppercase, right? So the way that we're going to do that is with a loop. So on the first iteration, we're going to map this H to capital H. On the next iteration, we're going to map this E to capital E. On the next iteration, we're going to map this L over to capital L. On the final iteration, oh, I missed an L there. L, L, O. Right? So that's the basic algorithm that we're going to be applying here. We map individual characters coming in to their uppercase counterparts. So let's actually try and implement a solution in this. Okay. Make uppercase here. So we get our string S coming in. I'm going to zoom in on this because I know it might be kind of hard to see. All right, so let's talk about how we're actually going to do this. So we know we need to loop through all of our string characters, right? So the best way to loop through all of your string characters in Python is just with a for in loop. And we also know that we want to return the final capitalized string. So whenever I'm programming, I like to declare my return value first. So in our case, we're going to have a return value, and it's going to be an empty string that we build on with our uppercase characters, because we don't want to edit the string that's being passed in. So I always name my return value RV for a return value. This is again the same way that Matt Keelan does snake case. I do camel case and always use RV as my return value. It's just kind of like my own style. You can probably always tell if I've written code because I do camel case and use RV for every return value. So I'm going to set this to empty string, right? Because we're going to build on this as we go. So our goal is going to be, okay, we're passing in this string here. Then we're going to create this new string, and we are going to add on these transformed values to the string inside of our loop that we are building on. So that's the way that I've elected to solve this problem. If we were real chads, we could just do return s dot upper. And I think this would work. I'm reluctant to see if this works. Let's test it. Oh no.
And
Yeah.
that's programming, guys. Thanks for coming out. See you next week.
Python has this built in, right? It's kind of cheat. So essentially, Python has the upper function built in. Java has the upper function built in as well. But our goal is going to actually be to implement the upper function in our own way, right? Because we don't want to just copy we want to actually understand how the upper function works internally. We want to essentially write the function that does uppercase for you. So let's start with our RV equals empty string for, and we'll say, so in Python, remember the for loop syntax, we do the looping variable, we do for the looping variable in, and then whatever we're going to be taking values inside of. So because S is an array, we are able to take pieces of S, or characters in this case, every single iteration. So in Java, you would see something like for, yeah, I'm doing this because I know Alex is here and Alex knows Java. You would see for in I equals 0 while I is less than len, or string length. s dot length. How do you spell length? length. I always rely on the autocomplete. And then you do I++, but we can actually make this even spicier. We can do in I equals 0, and then we can do char c equals empty char. And then we can do on this, we can actually get the new character. We can do c sub. We can do c equals s sub I. And I should probably zoom out. And this is basically the equivalent in Java. You are defining two variables here and you're taking it. But in our case, all we have to do in Python, look at how much easier this is. And of course, the normal way that you could actually do this is you wouldn't do this inside of the for loop, right? You would literally just iterate through with the eyes. And then when you wanted to access your characters, you'd simply access via s sub I. Right, and that's going to give you character C. So that would be, you could just do C equals this, right? And this would be how you would do it in Java. In Python, it's all packaged up for you in this nice for in syntax that we have here. For in colon, and then the loop body is indented by 1. And it has to be indented by 1. Unlike in Java, where technically, if we wanted to be evil, we could easily take this guy. What did I just do? I've switched over to dialogue. That is not good. If we want to be evil, we can... Why is that not cut? There's no cut? Hold up. Okay, that was weird. What? Paste doesn't work either? I'm getting some weird stuff now. I think Python, this editor, this IDE is mad at me. They're not letting me paste. Okay, so be it. I will not paste. Anyway, back to the Python solution. We have to do an indent because we are now entering the loop body the same way we did an indent for RV and for C and S, right? So we're indenting again. And now for what's actually going to go in here. So we want to add on to RV. So RV is an empty string right now, but for each iteration, we want to add on the new character that we are making uppercase. So in Python, we actually need to somehow figure out how to transform a single lowercase character into an uppercase character. So we could c dot upper if we really wanted to. This would work, but that is kind of cheaty. So we're going to do it the normal C way and actually convert it to uppercase ourselves. So the way that we can do that, I don't know if there's a char here. I think you have to do... Is it from char code in Python? From, what is it? It's integer dot. How do you do from char code in Python? I actually have to reference this because I'm not entirely sure. Convert the int back to a char at the end. I know ord gets the... So the ord function here gets the integer value of your character. But then we have to... It gets the ASCII code. So for those of you who don't know, ASCII is what all numbers and letters are represented as internally in your computer. So if we actually take a look at a good ASCII table right now, come on, we can see that lowercase characters, when represented by computers, are represented above the uppercase characters by about, I believe it is, I want to say they're 35 off. You just have to do 97 minus 65, 97 minus 65, and we get 32. Right. Okay, so they're 32 off from each other, which is also nice because you can just bit shift in simpler languages. But for us, we're not going to be doing that. So we can literally minus 35 to make lowercase letters uppercase, assuming that we don't have spaces, right? So this basically, we're saying right now, we're only going to be handling cases where we're getting straight characters, and they have to be lowercase characters. So for this
statement, if you wanted to,
I'll do an if statement next, and this is going to fail the cases on purpose. I'm doing that on purpose, yes. But how do you convert back to char code in Python? It's not just two char. I know in Java it's two char code, but
Can you just try casting to like char like back?
I'm 90% sure this isn't a thing, but
Wait,
I could
I
be
think
wrong.
1 second.
If you cast a string, it's just gonna literally put the string.
I think you have to use CHR rather than char.
Looks like it, yeah. So CHR takes a integer ASCII value and converts it back to its character code as a string, right? So I know it looks like we have no idea what we're doing, and that's because we don't have any idea what we're doing, and that's how it should be as a programmer. You do not have to know every single thing that you need while you're writing your program. You have the ability, as a programmer, to use Google. Our job as programmers is not to memorize the entire Python string library function for function. Our job is to be comfortable enough and know that these functions exist so that we can Google them and Google how we use them. Being a programmer is basically being a professional Googler. You will be on Google more than you will be in your IDE. You will be digging through documentation for functions that you know exist that you're trying to find. Now, here is where there's only one instance where you have to know at least basic functions, and that's when you're doing coding interviews, because they will make sure that you know they are not going to let you use the internet, and they are going to want to make sure that you know all of this stuff. So I would say I highly recommend memorizing basic functions from all languages that would allow you to build anything that you want out. So if I was given this problem on any test or anything, if I was giving this problem as an interview question, I would do it in C, because I know how to do this problem in C without having to use Python's char and ord functions. You can literally cast between chars and ints in C, so therefore I would use C instead. So that's why it's also good to know multiple languages, because you normally have the option, at least hopefully you have the option during an interview, to use whatever language you want. If it's in a specific language, you should know that beforehand and you should prepare for that. So if they're telling you it's a Python interview, then be prepared to have your answers in Python and definitely memorize some of these Python functions. If not, use whatever language you're the most comfortable with. And best case scenario, do pseudocode so you don't mess up any syntax.
Another thing is too, wait, I just forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, if you practice enough problems like this and like just practice coding enough, like with these, just solving, thinking algorithmically and whatnot, working with a language or languages, right? I feel like you just start to, you don't have to work to memorize stuff. You kind of get the basic stuff down without really realizing it.
Okay, so with that, let's take a look at what we're actually doing here. So this algorithm here that we've written to make a string uppercase, we take an RV, we take an S, we declare this RV, which is our return value, as empty at the start. Now, for every character in the string coming in, we are going to put on our new uppercase version of the character. Now, the reason this works is because this ordc function returns the numeric value of our character. So say we pass in uppercase, I don't know, or lower, say we pass in lowercase a, right? So that's going to spit out 97 back to us. And now we do in our function, we do 97 minus 35. And I feel like it should be 32. I'm kind of sus now. 97 minus 35 is 62. That is wrong. Yes, it's 32. Okay. So back to thing. You minus 32 from it. And that is going to give you your new integer, right? And now we want to convert this number back to a character through our ASCII table. And now we just look at our ASCII table and we see that capital A, 65, we're getting out 65, converts over to A, right? So let's actually test this out now. Zoom out a bit. And let us test, and it is going to fail on the big attempt because we did not account for spaces and we did not account for other characters. So how are we going to solve this? Well, now we're going to need some new logic in our loop. It's not enough to just add or subtract 32 from each of these characters anymore. Now we actually need to check and look at each character to make sure it's correct. So let's actually take a look at how we do that now. So in our loop, we actually need to check each character to make sure it's something that we should be subtracting 32 from. And we should only be converting it if it's already a lowercase character. So how do we check if it's already a lowercase character? We simply check if that character is in between the upper and lower bounds of the lowercase characters in the ASCII table. So where are the upper and lower bounds? 97 and 122. Now here's a really handy thing in Python. You can use double less than rather than single less than. And I know this is weird for people coming from Java because you are not allowed to do this. You have to put and statements. You have to put and in between your multiple less than statements. But in Python, we have the benefit of being able to actually type this out. So let us do RV. Okay, so it's going to be ORD of the top character, or at the bottom character in this case, which is A. So the ORD of A, and then our character value, the order of our character value, and then the order of our upper bound, which is Z, right? So if our character's ASCII value is in between the ASCII value of A and the ASCII value of Z, then we are going to subtract 32 from it, making it lowercase. Otherwise, and we are now going to write our else here, we are just going to add the character itself. Not even ORD C, just C, right? Okay, now let's test if this works. And oh my, that is very zoomed in. Test. Uh-oh, they don't like me. Oh, I forgot. Python, this is very important. You have to have colons after your if statements and your else statements. This is a bad habit you pick up on when using C for your entire life. All right, now let's check what is wrong with our new thing. So they are most likely going to complain. Random tests. Okay, what are they checking? We have to deal with uppercases. Oh, am I not? It should be less than or equal to. Yes, yes. Okay. Because keep in mind that we also want to make lowercase a uppercase. So less than or it has to be less than or equal to. Otherwise, we're excluding A and Z from our thing, right? So let's test this again. And there we go. All right. So that is how you would write Python to uppercase at the hardware level without using any of these, quote unquote, at the hardware level, right? We're not actually working at the hardware level, but this is a lower level implementation. This is how upper would be implemented internally, right? Or something like this. So that's a fun one. So beyond that, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to write the bot that Brian made last week that does weird case. So let's go over and look at the weird case problem. And this will be the last live demo that I'm going to do. You're going to see that a lot of these, where's my weird case? I sent it to Robin. Hang on. Weird string case. All right, so this guy right here. So we have to write the function to weird case. I'm not writing it in Ruby, I'm writing it in Python, that accepts a string and returns the same string with all even indexed characters in each word uppercase and all the odd indexed characters is lowercase. The indexing explained is 0-based, so the 0th index. Oh, this is actually, I see why they made this 6Q. It's actually, because you're not just changing every other character. You're forcing indexes based on the start and the end of words. So you have to have a resetting index for each string. Is going to be my approach to this. So let's get started. So we pass in our string, and the first thing we're going to do, of course, is set our return value because we need somewhere to store our new weird cased string, right? And now we also know already that we're going to have to go through every single character. So let's say for C in string. And now comes the fun part. We actually get to decide what we're going to put in RV based on what the current character is. So we need to remember indexes of string positions, essentially. So even indexed characters are, what is it? Odd index characters are capitalized, even indexed ones are not, right? So the way that we can do this is we can have an index variable. Index equals 0. And we will reset that every time we hit a space. So if C equals, did they say how you're supposed to handle? Oh, you're not supposed to handle any weird characters. You're supposed to handle normal characters. And are you supposed to lowercase things that come in is my next question. Do they tell you? No, it doesn't look like it. So we will not worry about that. Okay, so if C equals double equals, remember that, a space, then we're going to reset our index to 0. Otherwise, at the end of this loop, we are going to do index plus equals 1, which is just index equals itself plus 1, because we are going to increment our index within the current word. And now, to actually do the fun part. So if, I should actually continue here. Continue. And continue just ignores the rest of the loop. And we want to ignore the rest of the loop because we don't want to enter any of the logic down here for any of the other code. So, all right, if our current index modularly divided by 2 is 0, which means it's an even number. Actually, let's do an odd number. So modular division by 2 means if the thing divisible by 2, if anything modularly divided by 2 is 1, this means if the number, when divided by 2, has a remainder of 1, then it's odd, right? That makes sense to everyone? I hope I'm not crazy. That's how that's how you're supposed to do it, and that's how I've always seen this done. So if the index modularly divided by 2 is 1, then we are going to add the uppercase version of that to our string. So in this case, I'm not going to kill myself by doing it the hard way. I'm literally just going to do C dot upper here. Okay. So we are creating, if it's an odd character, we are going to uppercase it. Otherwise, we are just going to not uppercase it. And we could also even lower it. Oh, and they're going to actually count 0 as an even index. So I can, they said even indexed characters are, indexing is 0 based. The 0th index is even. Okay. Therefore, the 0th character should be uppercase. So I just flip these. Lower, upper, right? All right, now let us test. What don't they like? Oh, I forgot my colons again. Test. All right, let's see. I have failed miserably. None should equal this. Oh, it's because I'm not returning RV. That would make a lot of sense. Return RV, and now we test. And what don't they like? Okay. This is a test, should return the correct value for multiple words. It's because we're not handling spaces. RV plus equals space, test, and bravo. And let us attempt, and that's your full attempt. So this does weird case, which basically means we are just, uppercasing the every other character of a word. And this is actually a bot that Brian wrote like last week. So it's fun to be able to take a look at the actual algorithm behind this. All right, well, I'm pretty much set for these. Does anyone have a problem that they want to go over that's a good algorithmic problem we could look at and go over how we would do an approach to in Python? Is anyone working on any of the harder problems that Robin posted? Because we can also take a look at those. Some of these might take me a second to grasp, though. Normally it takes me about like 3 minutes to fully understand the problem before I start implementation.
I'm working on the second one that Robin did. I just started a few minutes ago. I didn't know if we were doing like timed stuff though, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people should start like if they want. I think we should give like I think it's not gonna be that hard. Like I think honestly, if you have experience with codings before, I think the 10 to 15 minutes will be okay.
Yeah.
Maximum 20, because like it's a easier ones than usual.
I'm gonna throw the ones that I did into my GitHub, and I'll let everyone else take a look at those problems, see if you can solve it. And Robin, we'll meet back here in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think
Alright.
people probably started already.
All right, yeah. So get to work on those 2 problems that Robin posted in the chat. They're up there: pyramid array and retrieve array value by index with default. So good luck.